Hi, my name is Lisa Marshall. I'm an attorney and a partner at a law firm called Kenyon Decent, and I am the appointed city attorney for the city of North Bend. I have two daughters, 18 and 22. They graduated from Eastlake High School, and my oldest daughter is in New York, and my youngest daughter is at Bellevue College. So I'm really happy to be here talking to all of you today. So the city of North Bend is what we call a code city, and that is a very, very boring way of saying it was organized under an optional municipal code. So cities have to be organized and incorporated under the Constitution of the state of Washington, as well as the regulations that apply to that size city based on population. Open government refers to the fact that almost everything a municipal government does is subject to public records requests, meaning we have to produce all the records associated with city business and city decisions. And all of our meetings are open to the public. So the Open Public Meetings Act, which is a different area of the state code, requires that we allow meetings to be open to the public, minutes to be taken, and now in this digital age that we're in, they're also most of the time recorded and available to stream online. There are only a few exceptions for when a city can meet outside of the public's view, and those are to discuss litigation, union agreements, and grievances against a high-ranking public official. The legal authority that a city has is also in the state constitution, as well as in the Revised Code of Washington, Title 35, which I'm sure you probably won't need to look up, but it essentially requires cities to be run a lot like a corporation. There aren't investors, there aren't owners of the corporation, but the public and the citizens and the taxpayers are essentially the subjects, if you will, of the city government. And of course, the open and transparent government is important so that the citizens know who they're electing and what their elected officials are doing. A corporation organized under the Constitution, municipal corporation, has the power to borrow money, to tax, to purchase property, to have a police force, all of the things that you would find common to a city or another entity such as a water or sewer district. Those are the powers that the city has. And of course, the elected officials are that's the body that makes the policy decisions. That's the legislative branch of government, and the executive branch of government, which is where I work, execute the laws and implement the policy decisions that the city council has made. An advisory body is very important. There's only one or perhaps a couple advisory bodies that are required by state law. The first one that comes to mind is a planning commission. The state law requires that certain cities have a planning commission to advise the city on land use issues such as zoning, comprehensive planning, and other issues regarding how the city looks and the uses allowed in certain zones. In addition, most cities have other advisory bodies. Some have a salary commission to set salaries of elected and appointed officials. Some bodies have a park board that advises the city on parks and recreation opportunities. And some cities even have a lodging tax board or commission, which means that if there is a lot of tourism in the city can collect taxes and distribute those under the laws of the state of Washington. So importantly though, advisory boards are just that. They provide a recommendation to city councils. One of the tensions that I think is pretty common with advisory bodies is oftentimes an advisory body will make a recommendation to the council, but the council will want to go in a different direction. And oftentimes that creates some challenges for the two bodies to understand the roles and responsibilities of each. Ultimately, the city council can either accept, reject, or modify a recommendation provided by an advisory body. And I think when volunteers go into a position knowing that that is a possibility, then it sets expectations for both boards. Sure, because a city organized in the state of Washington is run a lot like a corporation, it can sue and be sued. Civil litigation typically against a city looks a lot like challenges to a city's set of land use decisions. For example, a developer may not be happy with some of the conditions placed on development. Development may sue the city. That's a very, very common type of litigation to see. Other types of lawsuits that the city may face are challenges to the city's responses to public records, also called FOIA requests or Freedom of Information Act requests. Oftentimes citizens are not happy with the time the city needs to produce records. That's a common litigation area. In the other civil fields, we don't see so much litigation for constitutional issues, for example. That does not come up very often. We do see a lot in the police world, as you might imagine. And so the city's police department, whether it's provided by a county, as is the case with a lot of cities, or with the city of North Bend, police services are provided by the city of Snoqualmie. Sometimes citizens will sue, or an interested party may sue over police action or inaction. That's another type of civil litigation, not criminal, because it's not the person charged with a crime that's suing, but another party perhaps unhappy with the way the police have handled something. North Bend is a rather small city, relatively speaking, and so it really does not require an in-house legal department with a lot of paralegals, attorneys, law books, space in a city hall. All of those things add up to a lot of money, and we call that overhead. So there are city employees that oftentimes a legal department within a city, those employees of the city will receive a salary and benefits, and all of those things add up at the space to operate a legal department. And the city of North Bend really does not need something that expensive, so it contracts with law firms to provide the services of a city attorney, and that's what I do. My paycheck comes from the law firm I work for, and the law firm I work for sends invoices to the city of North Bend. Those invoices are paid, and our law firm operates that way. Interestingly, cities are legally required to have a city attorney. A city attorney can be an in-house position, an employee of the city, or it can be a contracted position. We provide city attorney services to many, many, many smaller jurisdictions. Examples of large legal departments, City of Seattle, where I worked for a number of years in the 90s, has a lot of attorneys, a lot of paralegals, and even a claims department. So just as you submit a claim to your insurance company, you can submit a claim to a city. Suppose you drove through a pothole, your car is damaged, something like that. And so bigger cities will have those in their legal departments as well. At city council meetings, again, I am a member of the executive branch, so I am not voting. I am not making policy decisions, nor are any other staff members, such as the mayor or the community development director, the finance director. We are all part of the executive branch. So the policy direction that we receive from the city council is usually done outside of the council meeting. However, the council meetings are attended by the executive branch of government. We are making presentations. We are asking for direction oftentimes. We present, for example, a budget that the council has to adopt. It's our job to be able to explain the proposal, the budget proposal, and the council can modify it, accept it, reject it. The city attorney's role in council meetings is also as the parliamentarian. You've heard of Robert's Rules of Order, which is a way to conduct meetings so that they're smooth, people are heard, there's an agenda that it's followed. And that's really not a legal issue, but it is a role that falls on the city attorney. Seldom, but sometimes I will interrupt a meeting to request that the council go in a different direction. If I see that they're headed into some undesirable discussion or discussion that should happen in closed session because litigation risk is associated with the discussion, Sometimes an interruption is necessary on my part, but very, very seldom do I speak at a city council meeting. I'm there to observe and to provide to provide advice if needed. I will not attend committee meetings as a rule unless there's a legal issue that comes up. Oftentimes legal issues surround comprehensive planning, which is a document that sets forth a 20-year plan for what the city hopes that its geographical area looks like in the future. And those issues are legal sometimes because the state has set forth a number of requirements that all cities have to meet with its comprehensive plans. And those aren't intuitive. They require a lot of reflection and reading. And so sometimes I will help a planning commission understand what its mission is. And that usually falls on the shoulders of the department director or the planning department director. But if there are legal issues associated with that commission or committee, I will attend. But because these are advisory bodies, there's usually not a lot of legal issues associated with them. But I am available to address planning commissions, boards, and committees as needed. Great question. There is a website called Municipal Research and Services Center. It is accessed by typing in your search bar mrsc.org. I am probably on that site every day looking for samples of ordinances and resolutions or contracts that other cities have used that we might use as a starting point for something we're working on. But there are also blog posts written about once a month and articles about how government works. If there's new legislation, MRSC will usually put out a story about the new legislation. For example, cities have to have composting regulations now. That's something that MRSC would cover on its page. Another resource is AWC, Association of Washington Cities. That organization is a resource for city staff, people, elected officials, and it provides insurance to member cities, but it also is on the cutting edge of legislation, and wants to be an advocate, if you will, for city issues that the legislature needs to address. So those are two that come to mind.